The coronavirus has hit us hard and fast. The world is trapped indoors while we search for a solution. I decided to make the most of this situation, so during this time, let's put a new lens on the lives of some creative professionals. Normally, their busy schedule would prevent them from doing an interview like this. Now that they're trapped at home, we have a chance to peer into their lives and understand how they make a living. When you emerge from this, maybe you'll gain some insight during one of these interviews that will inspire you to follow your passion. Welcome to The Noble Perspective. I want to introduce everybody to my friend Scott here. Scott, thank you so much for coming on and doing the show with me. Say hi to everybody.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, buddy.
And I want to introduce everybody, or at least tell everybody who you are in my life and who you are as far as my perspective goes. So Scot Tempesta has a website called Sailing Anarchy. I've known him for maybe 3-4 years now. And it all started with an email. Hey, man, I'm trying to be an onboard reporter for the Volvo Ocean Race. Do you know any boats I could get on? And his response was, me. Come on my boat.
And you were like, when? I go, tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a Wednesday night race, right?
That's right. Yeah, it was like totally really happened all quickly. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go for it. And ever since then, I'll tell you, everybody on the show, that I've had more laughs with Scot Tempesta than most of my friends in my life. Really good time. He's an excellent sailor, and I know it's crazy. We kick ass out there. I have a lot of fun sailing with Scott, and the website's really cool. I definitely feel like, kind of being a bit of an outsider myself in some ways, it's been fun to be part of this sort of Sailing Anarchy brand. Scott has been excellent at reposting a lot of my work, and he's even thrown some work my way from people even like North Sails, actually. So thanks for that, Scott.
You're welcome. What's my vig? By the way, what's my vig on all these things you're getting?
Shh. We'll work that out later.
Sure.
That's right. Yeah, so I guess I want to ask you, what I want to talk about, and I think a lot of people probably wonder, is how did Sailing Anarchy start?
You know, it's a pretty long story, and I don't want to bore people to death, but it started, well, like much of my things, it started out of anger. And I think I've safely carried that tone on the website for 21 years, which actually is how long we've been publishing online, if you can believe it. I mean, 21 years ago, there was nothing. I mean, there was literally nothing online. Just maybe some primitive porn sites and crappy sailing websites. And I guess my impetus was I was in talk radio, and I had been a sailmaker. I sold sails. I didn't make them for about 10 years. Burned out, burned myself out of the industry, but always wanted to go into radio. So I got into radio, and I was keeping an eye on sailing, but I was a little burnt out. And so I started to see what's going on, and there was a couple of things online that were, pretty goddamn bad. And one of them, I'm not going to mention any names, because if I mention a name, I'll go into a 10-minute tirade about the punk and his old man. But that's maybe for another time. So I had sent an email in. I was criticizing, if you can imagine me criticizing anything. I know it's hard to picture. I was criticizing an article that they had put up, and I had known the publisher, I guess, for a long, long time. And and I put it, it was a pretty good critique, and he didn't print it. And so I was kind of surprised. So I waited a day or so. It didn't come up at all. So I sent him an email. Go, hey, old man, why didn't you print my letter? It's pretty good. No reply. Dude, I'd honestly known him since I was a teenager, and we were friends. I sailed on his boat. My dad raced on his boat, so I was kind of surprised. And then I finally figured out what was going on. I'm not in the good old boys club, because it was already. I mean, there already is that, in the sailing scene, especially in the yacht club scene.
Right.
There's the good old boys, right? And by the way, a 30-year something membership at San Diego Yacht Club, and needless to say, I've never been a good old boy there either. And so I realized that, there's this little elite bubble of people, and I am, since I'm not ass kissing and saying, hey, great job, and wow, the sport's so wonderful, they wouldn't get to run it. So I'm like, well, fuck that and fuck you. So I didn't know anything, dude. I knew nothing of. I was in radio, so just real quickly, we had a board operator, and I go, hey Nick, during a commercial break, I go, hey Nick, do you know anything about websites? He goes, yeah. I go, can you make one? He goes, yeah. So we built this really primitive thing. I mean, somewhere I have screenshots of it. It was just, an absolute atrocity. But, so really what I started doing is I had built up a number of years of just complaints about the sport, people in it, how it was run, blah, blah, blah. So I just spent the first maybe month just bitching about everything in the sport I could think of that I, didn't think was that great, and had built up, like I said, a little bit of anger. And so I launched it, and it was good. I actually had some pretty good articles and some decent stuff. But then I realized that, by the way, I'll have a little drink here. It's vodka soda. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
That's right. And it is a pandemic after all.
That's right. I mean, I think I'm warding off the germs by doing this.
For sure.
So then I thought, well, I better, I was actually doing a business talk radio, which I had no business doing. I was the color guy. But one of our frequent guests is a really successful trader. And he had started a little website. It was called ClearStation. And it was ostensibly for really good traders, really smart young traders, mostly in Frisco, but everywhere. And they would come in and talk about stocks and what they thought was good, and what they thought was worth getting into, et cetera. So the guy that did it, his name was Chris Screenack, really was just a tremendous guy, still around. He introduced me to the sense of community, because they had an investment community. And I'm like, I hadn't really ever thought of that. Like, I just gotta keep. And I thought, I wonder if I could start a community. Like, I think I got people looking at this, and I don't see any place online, because there wasn't anything worth a shit anyway, but I didn't see anywhere. So I thought, oh, okay, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can get readers involved, right? And so I probably started user-generated content before it was even a thing. I mean, seriously, because I realized, like, okay, what I'm gonna produce good content, and I think over the years, Justin, we've done that better than anybody. I mean, consistently better. Sure, it's weird. Sometimes really, really out of left field. Sometimes offensive. Sometimes a little boring, but not very often. And I knew I could do that, but I thought the lifeblood of the website is going to be the forum, because that's going to I'm going to get people involved.
Right.
And so before you know it, I started getting user-generated content, and I was like, oh, this is cool, because in forming a community, I wanted everybody learning that the World Wide Web just wasn't in San Diego, but actually went everywhere in the world.
Right.
I thought, well, listen, I'm going to start seeing if people are interested and want to contribute stuff. So before you know it, I got something from Australia, and people would start sending stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
So what kind of stuff were they in the beginning? Were the forums kind of, what was on there?
Can I tell you what the most prevalent thing was? I don't know if I have these. I think we lost a lot of archives. The one question was, who is this guy?
Who is what guy? You, as in you?
Yeah. Because to this day, I hardly ever make the site about me. I mean, sometimes I do, I boast.
Well, the occasional picture of your boat, and, I won this, race, and,
other than once every other day, I don't think I do that very often.
Right.
But, I've never made the site about me. I mean, I honestly haven't. And you'll notice I don't, if I write it, I don't put a byline there.
Right.
I don't, I'm just the guy who created this thing. Yes, it's mine, and yes, it's my voice, and yes, it reflects, a lot of my insanity. But so the first thing was, who is this guy? Because there was nowhere anywhere where anybody could figure out who I was. And then and once they got over that hurdle, like, okay, yeah, we know who this guy is, the San Diego guy, okay, pretty good sailor, blah, blah, blah. Then, I think the original I forget what it was, but just people started randomly posting things. And then the things that I would get via email would be like somebody's boat in Australia or some story from Boston or whatever, right? And you know, the thing just kept growing. And I'll never forget when I got my first advertiser. I actually had pilfered him from a far, far inferior site to mine.
Before you talk about your first advertiser, I'm actually curious. One of my questions was, when did you figure out that it was time to like monetize this, and how did you figure out you could?
Well, that's part. If you hadn't interrupted me, that was part of my story.
Oh, my bad. I'm a terrible host here.
Terrible. I should do both. Can I ask me questions?
Sure. You do generally talk to yourself, so.
If you should see me in my house, you think it's a crazy old man. I mean, I'm constantly talking to myself.
I mean, generally when we're racing with you, it is you just talking to yourself the whole time, or yelling at somebody for fucking up. But otherwise,
mostly bitching about y'all under my breath, if not directly. But so I started thinking, I wonder if anybody would advertise here, like, you know. And I'm thinking to myself, who the fuck would advertise here? Like, we're kind of weird, and you know, we're not like the other douchebags. And so and they are douchebags. So I actually pilfered my first advertiser from one that was on the aforementioned inferior site. It was a thing called Dirty Dog Sunglasses, and they were based in Australia. And I got their contact information, and I sent them an email, and I go, hey, you know, we're looking to get some advertisers. I wanted to know if you'd be interested, you know?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, sure. How much? And I go, I mean, I just, like most everything I do, I pulled it right out of my rear end. And I go, $100 a month. And he goes, oh, that sounds great. And I'm like, it does? And then the check came in the mail, and I'm like, people are going to give me money to advertise on? Okay. And so then I just started, you know, asking more and more people. And I think as the site got, you know, more and more traction, they started coming. And then, you know, really a large part of what I do, we're not a one-man band, but I run the show, of course.
Right.
I got people that work for me, and but I really handle almost all the sales. And
well, so okay, that was another one of my questions.
Yeah.
What is your typical like work week kind of look like? Because honestly, it wasn't until last week that I realized you actually do something there.
Well, so, I'll tell you something. Another thing I learned.
Well, anyway, hold on. I want to interrupt one more time. And the other thing was, you know, and it came up just so the audience understands. I was like, we were talking about this whole pandemic thing, and I was like, oh, isn't this just so weird? Like, what are we going to do? And you were like, well, this isn't really that weird. I mean, I always work from home. This is sort of my normal schedule, right? So that was when it kind of just dawned on me, like, if this isn't weird to you, then, you know, wow, Scott actually does work.
I really do. I mean, I work from my home office where I'm at now. I don't know if you can hear my pit bull snoring in the background. It's not only snorting, but farting, and it's really pleasant to hear.
Thank God we can't smell from here.
Right. I can. So yeah, I work out of my home office, and again, early on when I started the site, I realized that content was going to be king. Because I saw the fluff pieces that some of these a-holes were running, and you know, just fluff and puff. I mean, they should call themselves sailing fluffers, because that's really all they do. I'm gonna
get that website, by the way.
Yeah, I just bought the URL. And so I realized content is going to be king here. I mean, and that really and truly, I'm not trying to make shit up or overstate anything, or I had any great vision. I mean, I did, and still do. Bit of a visionary. But
yeah, you're also not very bashful either, right?
I'm totally kidding. I'm just a visionary who lucked out. But I've been working at it hard. And so every single day, weekends, it can be any time, late at night, early in the morning, when I'm not passed out drunk, I'm putting content up on the site, and you know, I'm finding content, I'm generating content,
And you said
And
you
so
have some people working for you too. And what is that like? What are they contributing, and how are they working for you?
they're also fluffers, and so they come in every morning and fluff me. And then,
I'm
so
sure they appreciate
I have
that.
two IT guys that work for me,
Yeah.
and they're very helpful. And I have three writers, freelance writers that I pay,
Right.
and they really provide some excellent content. And really, other than what the stuff that I put up there, and it's user generated, and so we get a fair bit of that. Not as much as I'd like. You know, things are in waves. I mean, there was a time when I never had to sell a single ad on this site. People just came to me, and they still do, quite honestly. They're a
Right.
really good brokerage company, like a really well-known international brokerage company that I've not ever actually reached out to, partly because of my, malfeasance and, slackerness. But, and I was just shocked, like, wow, I'd love to have these guys. And so I do still get people just, reaching out to me. Hey, we're big fans, like to talk to you about advertising, and that's when I really kick it in gear. I'm a good salesman, always have been, and a bit of a bullshitter. I guess isn't being a good salesman really part of being a good bullshitter, vice versa? You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that was in the last one of these interviews, I was pointing out that I went to art school at one point in time, and I realized there are all these people who are way more talented than I am. Right. And the thing was, though, that they would stand up in front of the class and do their presentation, and it was like a mouse fart up there, and that's when I was like, all right, well, I got the gift of gab, so I'll be all right in this world. Right. And that it's true. It's like, that's a big part of owning your own business. And, like, you can back it up with, not to say I'm not, I know I do a good job at what I do, but right. But still, like, there are people out there who are just incredibly talented, but they don't have that ability to sort of match up the selling part to the rest of it. Right.
No, they don't. And listen, of course, I'm super proud of Sailing Anarchy, and, I defend it to the death. And, but, and I'm sure, I mean, people, know me pretty well, and people that know me that, I'm not always a braggart. I mean, most of the time, but not always. And, and I'm really not, but I'm super proud, and I'm loud. And, so I'm not afraid to, because I can back it up with my goods. I talk and I walk it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can I tell you just a really quick anecdote? So talking about, like, not having much talent. So I got hired, believe it or not, I got hired by E-Trade about 15 years ago. They wanted to sponsor our business talk show. And I actually got hired by E-Trade. It was so amazing. I mean, I was making big dough. I was getting, like, amazing money from E-Trade, and then good radio money. I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. So I had to fly up to Menlo Park for the new hire orientation, right? And so I think I'm like, what am I? I'm probably 40. Yeah, probably 40-ish. Yeah. Mid-40s. And I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of really young, super bright, masters, guys working on a PhD in finance. And so we had to go around the room.
Yeah.
And everybody had to stand up and introduce himself, right? And so, hi, I'm John, just graduated from Stanford, now getting in the master's program. Hi, I'm Jeanette. I just, graduated from Tufts, and so I'm sitting there thinking, well, what the fuck am I going to say? Like, there's no way. So I stand up and I go, okay, everybody here watch The Simpsons? And everyone, yeah, sure. I go, do you remember the episode where Bart traded test scores with Martin? And he got into the advanced school, and he's surrounded by all these great kids, and he clearly didn't belong at all. I go, that's pretty much me here in this room. I'm just a radio guy. Like, I really don't belong here. So, it is a little bit of, you kind of learn as you go. And I've learned a lot as I've gone along, right? I've made some pretty egregious mistakes as I've gone along, but, it's part of life. And
well, so on that note, as far as, like, they say we're sort of a culmination of all the books we've read and the people we've been with and our experiences, right? So what would you say? Cheer up, fucker. Oh, yeah. So what would you say as far as all your experiences, how have they sort of led to like the identity of Sailing Anarchy? Like you sold sales for a while, right? You sold sales, and
Yeah,
so how has everything sort of added up to this like perfect anarchy formula?
It's interesting. I was a really shy kid. I was shy right up until my late 20s. And then, Satan clearly interjected and created this evil persona. But I started to get my mojo. And once I started to sell sales, it's funny, I got hired to sell sales. I didn't know a fucking thing about selling. And the art of selling is an amazing thing. It's not bullshitting people. It's not lying to people. It's leading people to make the right decision for their needs. I mean, it sounds bullshitty, and platitude-ish. It's not. And so I realized, yes, I'm a good sailor, and we make a great product. But if I can't sell the product, it's not going to do me any fucking good at all. So there was a guy named Tommy Hopkins. He was the sales guru at the time, and I got all his cassettes. And I went to his seminars, and I got his books, and I really immersed myself in learning how to sell. And so I suddenly realized, oh shit, I've got everything. I got a personality. Back then, I was a really good sailor. I mean, I was really good, and now I know how to sell you. And so when you come in, or when I'm prospecting, I mean, that was a lot of what I had to do. Like, I just got thrown into this situation. Like, I got hired by the loft in Torrance to work at the San Diego loft, and the guys in the San Diego loft had never met me until I walked in the door. So I had, wow, I don't really, what am I going to do here? I'm sitting at my desk like, okay, well, I know how to sell. Let me get going. And so, that really generated some confidence in my ability to move product. And there was a time when I was selling sales that, I mean, it was truly David versus Goliath. Goliath being North, just this huge monstrosity of a sailmaker that owned everything, especially in San Diego. And then there's just punk ass me. I'm working for a company called Sobstad, which turned into Quantum. And I really did an amazing, I'm not bragging, I did an incredible job selling sales. I mean, I was really a force. And so, but I burned out. I burned out because, it's funny, when you turn your hobby to your vocation, you think it's the greatest thing in the world, right up until it isn't. Like, you'd be like, oh, fuck, I have to sail with that guy tonight. Like, oh, no. Guys would call up and complain and go, I can't point with my new Genoa. I'm like, all right, you need to come out with me. So I'd have to go out and go, well, you guys have the lead, 6 holes too far forward. Get a little backstay on here, and then I just, walk off going, Jesus Christ, I'm tired of holding everybody's hand. And so then I went into talk radio. Yeah. Talk radio is also a place where it's all you. I mean, it's funny. People think they can do talk radio. Bullshit. It's you in a room looking at your board operator through the glass and your microphone. And what you say is all there is, right? And so I started to perfect a little bit of like me, and not perfect, but I started to maybe expand a little bit on who I really am and the personality that I am. And I loved that. And, but yet I was also, thinking, well, I got to do some bitching about what's going on in the sailing world. And so I did. So at the time, I was doing full-time morning radio. I had my own Saturday show as well. And Sailing Anarchy was roaring. So I was a busy boy. And then, like everybody in the industry, I got fired. And I got fired by Clear Channel. They're Satan. And they're actually called, they're so shitty. They ran the Clear Channel name into the ground. And now they're iHeartRadio. And, and they couldn't suck more if they tried. They're billions of dollars in debt. I mean, they are going to go down, and I will dance on their grave. So when I got fired, I had Sailing Anarchy. So I'm like, fuck all y'all, and I'm out of here. And then I just concentrated on my website full time.
Full on. And now that you have Sailing Anarchy, like, do you have any other, like, is this your main gig, or do you have other avenues of income? Like a lot of the people I've had on the show, they do other things. They're not just like the guy I've interviewed on Monday. He's a wedding videographer, but he does like corporate stuff, and he's kind of all over the place. Is this your main gig or what?
You know what I've been getting into? Those old and young porn videos. I've been dabbling a little bit of that.
That's good. Yeah, nice. Who's the old one? Who's the young one? Like, are you saying grandmas or what?
No, 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 no.
Are you doing grandmas?
No, 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds. And then
Oh, okay.
I'm
You're the grandpa.
I'm
Okay.
the professor, you know.
I was a little worried that you were the one going after the ones in the little walkers.
Oh,
You're the young one.
I'm the old one, and they come into my office. I'm the professor, and they're failing. You know, they go, "Oh, professor, how can I get my grade back?"
Oh man.
You know, and then it goes from there.
We're living.
No, dude, like this is it, and it's really provided me a really nice living, and you know, I get to do what I want when I want. I do work a lot, but I also have time to fuck off. You know, I'll do a shit ton of work in the morning. Then I can have the afternoon to, you know, take the dog for a walk, go for a bike ride, go for a run, do a little porn filming. And I've been fortunate enough, honest to God, if anybody really knows, I am so appreciative and thankful to all my advertisers who support us. And I know sometimes it's not easy. I mean, I've more than once, and I could tell you it's more than a handful. I've had people write emails to every single one of my advertisers. I think I must have 30 advertisers everywhere. And I'll put something up that they didn't like, right? They're offended by it. And they would send emails to every one of my advertisers saying, "I'll never buy your product again as long as you advertise on Sailing Anarchy." And, you know, I think that's incredibly chicken shit, and it's gutless, and it's cowardice. And it's everything I despise, backstabbing bullshit. And it goes on in this industry. There's one guy who runs another site who is so guilty of backstabbing that you just wouldn't believe it. But I'll save that for another time. And so I've had advertisers, though, actually hang in. I mean, I've hardly had any drop. I had one drop, and I'm glad they dropped anyway. I didn't like them, and they didn't like me. But they've all stayed with me. So, you know, these are the people that provide the support for Sailing Anarchy to keep going. And yeah, it's what I do.
So as far as your clients and like getting the advertisers, like how much of it is you reaching out to people and how much of it is people reaching out to you to be part of this?
Well, you know, originally, since I didn't have any advertisers, I started reaching out and, you know, started getting some. And then once we got bigger and bigger, then they would start to come to me. Yeah. And really, I would say there are years where I didn't have to reach out to anybody. They would come to me, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. Because once you come in, once you say, hey, we're interested, I got you. I mean, I got you, because I'm gonna give you the numbers. You know, I mean, I don't have any stats in front of me, but our numbers are insane. Like,
yeah, I mean, I can vouch for that too. I mean, just I can look at the analytics from YouTube when I share a video, right? And it shows me exactly where I get all my views from. And, you know, overwhelmingly it's from your website, and I can see all the original clicks and all that stuff. So it's cool. It's awesome to see that, like, it's not, you know, this isn't hot air. You're blowing up people's asses. Like, this is legit. Yeah, no, for sure.
It's legit. I mean, everything we do, including the forums, which are very popular and do drive a lot of traffic for us. I mean, it's all Sailing Anarchy, right? And so our traffic numbers are outstanding. So when people come to me or I reach out to them, you know, I'm really proud to share my numbers with them right away, because, you know, I tell them, go ahead and compare our numbers to anybody else in the industry. Go ahead. Go ahead and see what Scuttle Butthole does for numbers. And you'll be running right back to me. And so, you know, I give good phone, I give good email, and you know what? I give people a platform to present their products and their services, and it's a goddamn good one, you know? So I'm really appreciative of those people.
So my dad's actually watching, and he wants to know, he says, Pete Conrad ran Sobstad Sales, and he says he was as controversial as Scott is. So did you guys get along? Did you know him?
Thank you, Peter Conrad. And what's great is anybody who watches this, who knows anything about Peter Conrad, will know exactly what I'm going to tell. Peter Conrad is a mad genius. And I think everybody who's extra bright, they are crazy. Peter Conrad, they started Sobstad, Tom Whidden from North Sales, one of my friends and somebody I have immense admiration for and respect, they started Sobstat together. And to show you how smart Peter Conrad was, they put all Sobstat sales on the America's Cup winner when Dennis went down to Australia and won with Stars and Stripes. And do you know that, like, during that process, I think it was, I don't have the timeline exactly right, but just about when that was happening or finishing, Peter Conrad fired Tom Whidden. And like, you got to be kidding. Like, what would you do that for? So then it was all Conrad. Okay. And he is actually the guy who came up with one of the original string sails. They were called Genesis sails. And the idea was fabulous. And the execution was terrible. Sometimes you get a really good sail, and sometimes you just get something that was so awful. Like, I'd call him up and go, Peter, how am I supposed to take this down to a customer and tell him that this is his new light number 1 Genoa when it's twice the weight of a heavy number 1? Like, you guys are, I mean, you're fucking me here. And, that's just the way it is. That's the way they're not, that's just the way they are. I'm like, holy shit. So Conrad was great and then also terrible. And he drove Sobstad essentially out of business. I mean, he really did. And then from the ashes and the rubble of Sobstad came Quantum. Like, the best people that were part of Sobstad became Quantum Sales. And now clearly they're a dynamic force in the sailmaking industry. And I love that. But yeah, Peter Conrad, oh my God almighty. He would call you one day, and I'll just wrap up with Conrad here. Here was Conrad. So, I would be selling some sales, and he'd call up one day and he'd go, Scott, you are doing a great job. Like, we're so proud. We think you're going to own the Southern California market. I'm like, great. And then he called me literally like the next day and go, what the fuck are you guys doing down there? Like, he's like, Jesus Christ. So yeah, that's the Peter Conrad story, at least from my perspective.
Yeah. And did you know him well? I mean, like, personally, were you guys?
No, I didn't. I mean, I probably knew him as I didn't. I didn't. I would go to a couple of sales meetings, the national sales meetings,
Yeah.
And, he was a little scary.
That's impressive for you to say. I want to ask you a little bit about sailing. So what is your background in sailing? How'd you get started in it?
Like a lot of these stories, when you try to start at the beginning, they go on forever.
Right.
But my parents didn't know shit about sailing, but they were sitting on the beach one day. We used to go down to Santa Monica Beach. I was a wee thing. And they were sitting there in the sand, and they were looking out in the ocean, and they were looking at the sailboats, and they go, wow, that's cool. I wonder if I could do that. And so my dad goes, I'm going to do it. So we bought this old shitter 18-foot Mercury, refiberglassed it, put it in the water, and we went sailing. And we knew nothing about sailing. Like, the first time we docked, when we came back to a dock, we were like, the wind was a beam. We're trying to dock against, land up against the dock. The boom is like 10 feet long, and like, it's clearing people. People are like the duck, and we're like crash landing, and we're like, oh, cool, we made it. Like, thinking like, this is how it is. And meanwhile, people are horrified, just horrified. And so we kept going more and more, and I started to get really interested. And then they bought me a Sabot, and I sailed that around. And of course, the first
did you race it?
Well, at first, no. But what would happen is I'd go out by myself, and I'd see another like Sabot, and I'd go, ooh, I got to beat him. I'd pull the main sheet in, I'd be steering like, I got to beat that guy. So early on, I had like the competitive juices, right? And they were flowing from the get-go. So then then they bought me a racing Sabot. Actually, they did a great thing. I used to have a bitchin' Honda 50 mini bike. Like, these were so bitchin'. We had these great dunes and these trails, and I'd ride all the time. And my parents said, okay, you have a choice. We'll get you the new racing Sabot, but you have to sell the mini bike. Or if you want to keep the mini bike, we're not getting you the racing Sabot. And it was tough, man, because I'm like, okay, buy mini bike. And then it just went on from there. Then we got a bigger boat, and I was better than my dad.
You sold the bike, right? You said get rid of the bike?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Did I say that
okay.
wrong?
No. I wasn't sure if you said get me a new bike. You said get rid of the bike. Okay.
No.
I was like, oh, that story, and you got another bike. What the hell, dude?
No. I wasn't a good salesman back then. If I was
Right.
back then, I probably would have had it all.
You would have had both. So wait, so then you got a new boat, and what happened after that?
And then I started racing, and it took me a while to kind of get going, but I had some incredible mentors, most notably a guy named Gary Swenson, who owns Ullman Sales Ventura. Without Gary, I would have been nothing. I mean, he is the single greatest sailor I've ever known. Had he not just been like kind of a homeboy, he would have been a national star. He was literally that good. I think he sailed in the laser districts one time with a whole bunch of good collegiate sailors and a whole bunch of really good sailors. And he won the districts with 9 bullets, like 9 bullets. So this is how good Gary was. And so we were friends, and he sailed Sabbats a little bit as well. And then I learned a lot. I had some other guys, Dave Klatt. I had some other people that were really good, and I learned from them, and we all became friends. And I used to race on Gary's boat, and then I started to learn about some big boat sailing. And then my parents bought a Cal 29. And by that point, I'm already better than my dad, right? So I was the one steering the boat. And in fact, we entered our first Newport Ensenada race in 1975.
Right.
63 boats in our class. It was Morph back then. And I was actually too young to qualify as a crew. You had to be 18, I think.
Yeah.
And so, but I did it anyway. And we finished, we were first to finish and third in class with all of us kids from Oxnard, which is where I grew up. Props, yo, what's up, Oxnard? We finished 1, 2, 3 in our class with Gary winning, a guy named Bob Boys, another terrific mentor, and then myself finishing third. So, then I just kept racing and racing and racing. And then time to go to college. And I decided I wanted to go to San Diego State for no reason other than my 2 roommates had already gone a year before me. And so
Right.
I'm like, and I came down to party one weekend. I'm like, I'm not leaving. So I stayed in San Diego, and then I knew nobody, Justin. I knew fucking nobody. But I wanted
In the sailing scene, or
yeah, in San Diego sailing scene.
yeah.
Dude, I knew nobody. But I wanted to get sailing. And so I just met somebody at a marine store, and then I raced on his boat, then I was skippered his boat, then I met somebody else, then I met somebody else and somebody else. And before you know it, I'm getting hired by Sobstad to sell sails, which to me, I think I was 30. It was like, oh my God, I've hit the bigs.
Yeah.
And then I joined San Diego Yacht Club because I was working in Mark Reynolds' loft. So Mark was one of my guys. Doug Peterson was one of my sponsors. And so I had some great sponsors. And so, boom, I got into San Diego Yacht Club. And there was kind of a moment where I went, holy fuck, I've arrived. Like, a douchebag from Oxnard. Like, I hope these people don't figure out who I actually am. Like, they think I belong amongst them. Okay. I mean, okay. And as it turned out, I earned it, and I did, and I do. And I'm proud. I'm proud. San Diego, as you know, is gotta be one of the best sailing areas in the country. I mean, for sure. The amount of world champions and national champions, I mean, this club has turned out, right?
Yeah.
So to be able to sit at the table with some of these guys, look, I'm not an Olympic sailor. I don't do much one design, but I'll take my bona fides. And back in the day when I was happening, I could sit at anybody's table. And so I was glad to, and I'm proud of. And it's an amazing, I wouldn't call it circuitous, but just an amazing path, that has led me there.
So nowadays, right, when I sail with you, it's cool to watch. Like, I started out really knowing nothing about sailing, as you know, and
do you know now? I'm not sure.
Debatably, I still call a hatch a door, and the floor.
Call the head the bathroom.
The head the bathroom, right? Yeah, the cabin cabin's still a room.
Got a lot to learn, son.
Got a lot to learn there. But no, I mean, so watching you and the team and everything, like, it is amazing how we shoot out in front of the entire fleet, and what do you think, besides your brilliance of being the driver of the boat, what is the key to success as far as being so good at sailing in San Diego and, kicking ass at all these little races?
I mean, it's mostly chalked up to years of doing it, right? I mean, At this point in my life, if I'm not good at that, then I'm a total dismal, abject failure, right? So it's just simply time doing it. But I had the experience of sailing with some really good people, some of the people I've already mentioned, learned a lot. And then I guess I discovered I did have some actual natural ability and some natural talent. I certainly had the exuberance and the enthusiasm. I mean, there was no doubt about that. And I do to this day. But I think it's just knowing the situations because you've seen them before, right? You're able to look at the start line, go, yeah, I kind of know what's going on here. Yes, we figure out which end's favored and do a minimal amount of stuff. But a lot of it really and truly is just gut. It's just, and that has become instinct now for me. And so, I really do operate on, I mean, listen, I've lost a step. I'm not going to kid anybody. I'm nowhere near what I once was. But as they say down in Texas, I may not be as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. And so I can put it together pretty nicely. But, this is a nice sport that you can lose a step and still be okay. You can't at the top level, that I already know. But because I've seen people that are at the top and then, age comes along and, you're just not as fast, as quick, as strong as the younger guys, right? And so I've lost a step. That's being kind, by the way. I probably lost 2 steps. But I have a lot of history and knowledge to bank on. And
right. So you kind of have that local knowledge of the bay, where like you can basically tell like, this side is definitely going to have more wind near the aircraft carrier or whatever, right? I think
I've learned that over the years,
right.
although I can be abysmally wrong as well. I must say, much of my prowess in the bay is easily discovered when I ask one question: where's Dennis?
Yeah, right.
Where's Dennis Conner? Because nobody knows the bay like Dennis. I mean, I'm a pauper. I'm a punk compared to the king, and he is the king of the bay. And so I will sometimes use him for reference. Like, where's Dennis? Like, well, then if we don't know what side, like a hot rum series, let's go where Dennis is. I mean, let's go over there because he's probably right. And he is right, 90% of the time. But
you also do listen to you bring really good crew on the boat often. You bring really experienced people on the boat. We kind of have like a core crew, but I hear you talking to Paige and Sean and everybody and, discussing where to move. And sometimes your crew is kind of calming you down because I mean, again, as somebody on your boat, I see you get extremely competitive and pissed off as soon as somebody starts catching up, right? And so I think you've picked the right people to be on your boat also. Like that's another thing that you've invited people who know you to be like, all right, Scott, focus. All right, forget about them behind us right now, focus on where we're going.
Well, you know me, the sky is always falling, right?
Right.
It's always, the grass is always greener over there. Like, fuck, look at those guys. Like, how the fuck did we end up over here? Meanwhile, I'm the one who put us there, but, so one thing I've learned, and one person you didn't mention who sails with us a lot is Brian Janney, right, from North Sails.
Yeah.
And, Brian has gotten he's a young buck. I mean, what is he, 33, 34? Jesus. But Brian's gotten so good over the years. Paige Johnson also. I've been sailing with Paige for years and years. Paige has gotten really good. All the kids, Damian Craig, as these guys get a little young, older.
Andrew's watching, so you better say something nice about him.
Oh, Andrew, shit. Yeah, Andrew's great. I love Andrew. And Andrew is
Andrew LaPlante. Andrew LaPlante. He's also on The Bachelor. We should also mention that.
Well, that's true. He's in a hot tub scene. So.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
anyway.
think he got naked. I don't think he could stack up, if you know what I mean, against some of the competitors. But so I think it might be a natural thing. I don't know, but I think it was for me. Once I realized these, and I think probably Paige and Brian and maybe even Andrew have noticed that I'm probably not as good as I used to be. So I've allowed them more input, right? And I think because they've earned it. First of all, they've had to suffer through me for years, but they're clearly better and better and better. So now, instead of me making every goddamn decision, which was always what I've done, always, I don't need a tactician. I'll call it. Because you know what? I grew up steering and then making the tactical calls, right? And so that's what I did. I steered and I called tactics. But then I got to the part, well, Jesus Christ, now I can have a tactician? Like, oh, baby, that makes my life a lot easier. Of course, I second guess them all the time and, criticize the moves. I don't, a little bit, but mostly I don't. So
Right.
it's enabled me to get people more involved, and I trust their judgment. And if they're wrong, I berate them and let them know. But no, I don't. I don't. So that's allowed the boat to be, I think, people have more interest. And we do have some new people that have come along. You're one. Christy Hagan is one. Steph Clancy is one. Paul Vera is one. I'm sure there's people I'm leaving out. And I kind of feel a little bad for them because sometimes I don't have specific jobs for them. Do the pit. That's what I'll say to Steph or to Christy. And, that's not to disrespect them. Their knowledge base is not that great. And
Right. Hey, man, honestly, being pit, though, I'd rather be that than just rail meet, and it does,
absolutely.
It starts to get you thinking, part of sailing, in my opinion, is just that situational awareness, knowing what's coming up next and being able to process through it, which I'm terrible at. Maybe it's all the drugs, I don't know. But anyway, I've gotten better. But, I think you shouldn't, pit's not a bad thing. And that's great to be able to put these new people in, I appreciate it.
Well, it is. And, the thing is, I'm running a race. I'm running the race in my head,
Right.
This is all happening in my head. And sometimes I communicate it and sometimes I don't. Like, I'll just go, let's tack, right? Let's tack. Tacking in, I'll blurt out, tacking in 3, 2. And it's like, you're not giving me this on time. I'm like, fuck it, we're tacking. I'll throw the helm over, and everybody's pissed that I gave them time. But so in my head, I'll see situations maybe develop really quickly. And like, I don't have time to explain it. I just want to do it. And so sometimes I'll do that. But I would say overall, I've had more input. We make probably better decisions overall, and it gets more people involved, and the boat's more fun accordingly.
For sure. So we have like 10 more minutes on here. So okay. I want a couple more things. So inshore, offshore, talk to me a little bit about that. Like I know you do some offshore stuff, but you seem like more in tune with the inshore type racing.
I don't do offshore stuff anymore. I've had a number of invitations. I just don't. It grinds you. I'm not a young man, and it's a young man's game. I suppose if I owned a 50-footer, sure, I'll go, and I'll, carry the owner car around with me all the time and stand watches, but I'm not going to really bust ass. And the problem is you have to bust ass on any boat you're on, sail changes at 3 a.m, folding sails, packing kites, like fuck that. I mean, really, I just don't want to do it. And honestly, I've never done it. And so I'm not interested in that. I mean, I do like the allure of it. And of course, crossing oceans, which I've done, I've done 5 Transpacks and probably, honest to God, with Ensenada races, but that hardly counts. But with Ensenada races, I've probably done 80 races, to Cabo, Puerto Vallarta, Manzanillo, La Paz, and then all the Ensenada races. But, back when I was, younger and sprier and, better, I was really into it. It's really fun. I mean, there is a whole different vibe out there, as you know. Justin, you've done ocean passaging, and you see how the dynamic on the boat starts to develop, right? It's all based really around the people, the personalities on the boat, right? And then also the weather conditions and what kind of boat you're on, all that kind of stuff. So I've done a lot, and I did them. I started early doing those. I think I did my first Well, I'll tell you for a fact, I did my first long distance race, Marina del Rey to Puerto Vallarta in 1975. I was still in high school. My parents let me take 2 weeks off of high school, which was unheard of. Nobody would do that. To go do this race on a Ranger 33 with Gary Swenson as the skipper and Dave Klatt on board. And do you know that we finished first in class and first overall? My very first race. And so I've done a lot. I would do it again under the right circumstances, right, with the right guys, and as long as I'm in charge, all will be well. But I'm not meaning that. I don't want to do the grunt work.
Right.
So I like the inshore racing because I like the immediacy of it, right? When you bang a shift and you tack over, you cross everybody, it's like, fuck yes, it's just so rewarding to when you realize that you've thought about this, everyone's sailing well on the boat, hiking hard, sails are trimmed, we make the call, we tack over, and it's like, boom, and then of course the other side of that coin is, oh, fuck, look how much they're crossing us by, I mean, it is a sport of like incredible highs and like just disheartening lows. And me, I have to.
And inshore and offshore. It's like, it's bipolar, right?
Well, it is. Now, offshore is more of a long play thing, right?
Right. Yeah, offshore is like cross country running, and inshore is like sprinting, right? Like, you see it instantly.
So immediately, right? And of course, I have to articulate every good thing and every bad thing. You know me. I never shut up. Which is my blessing and my curse. I mean, I'm fully aware of that.
No, it's good. It's good to see that you're very competitive, and that's exciting, and it is hard, like at one moment you're so happy, and then 10 minutes later, it's like the whole crew is like all silent and like, oh shit, we totally screwed up, and he's so pissed. Yeah, right.
But the truth is, Scott's usually pissed at Scott.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm the nut holding onto the.
Oh no! As soon as we finish that cross line, or the finish line, we pop out the beer, and it's like, yeah, whatever. Maybe you'll bring it up and you'll talk about it for a minute, but you're happy and back. It's not like you're pissed the whole time, right?
I'll say one thing that has changed about me as I've gotten a little older is, you win some, you lose some, right? And you want to win every fucking one, of course. And I would say our win percentage last year on A4 was stunning. I mean, we must have had an 800 win percentage. I mean, seriously, like I'm not bullshitting. We won so much, and so it's great. But I do know that, with winning comes losing, and just somebody has to win, somebody has to finish second, right? So it doesn't always go your way. I'm able to philosophically now just go, that's all right. I mean, I might be really pissed for like 30 seconds, like fuck. And then I'll go, that's cool.
Yeah.
Shit happens,
Right.
It's better for my health. I think it's better for everybody.
Right. So I want to finish out with a couple more questions, and I want to talk about now not such a happy topic, but this is why we're able to do this right now, which is COVID. And first of all, how is that impacting you personally and business wise?
Not well, personally. Okay, not that much, because I sit in my home office most of the day. When I'm not here, I'm usually just in the area running or walking the dog or whatever. So I'm sort of in our community anyway. Business wise and personally, my kids are practicing social distancing like madmen. They're so great. And so my boys are here. My youngest one lives with me full time. And my oldest goes to USC, but he's doing all his classes via Zoom now. And so he's with me half time and he's with his mom the other half time. And so it's great. My girlfriend is a fiend for all of this. I mean, she literally walks around with like a bottle of alcohol spray. I mean, she's just crazy about it, which is great. So I'm able to see her and be with her, which is wonderful.
Right.
So personally, it's not huge. I'm very concerned, though, that I understand the Port of San Diego, thanks to you, Justin, is contemplating closing down the entire bay to recreational boating. And that bums me out because I know we can't race. All the races are canceled for at least the foreseeable future. But I have my friend's Harbor 20 that my girlfriend and I take out all the time. So if we're going to plan, in fact, we're planning on going tomorrow unless something changes. But if they do that, that's going to put a crimp, in my style, because really and truly, what do you do when you're not doing anything? It's like, sailing's a good thing to go do, right? And I love to do it with her. It's opened up, by the way, a whole new aspect of sailing that I completely had underappreciated, and that is just the simple beauty of just going out on a nice day sailer
and kind of cruising,
love, and just sailing around and just, we don't play music. I actually don't talk. It's hard to believe.
That's shocking.
Ask for it. She'll tell you, like, I don't say that much, unless I'm yelling at her, of course. Fetch me another drink, bitch. But I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. She says that to you, you mean?
Right. Ma'am, would you mind? But business is a very interesting thing because the world has slowed down, if not shut down completely.
Right.
We all, and I think everybody, thinks that this and is hoping that this is going to be temporary, right? And I present myself to advertisers in that way. I've lost a few advertisers. There's no doubt. Smaller guys, a couple smaller guys, they're out. No sales, no income, they're done. But believe it or not, Justin, it's crazy. I have had more business in the last 2 weeks than I've had in the month before, the entire month before. And part of it's because people, I'm telling people, convincing people that now is not the time to fold the tent. I mean, you need to be present because you don't want people to think you've disappeared. Right?
Totally. Or your business is going to go down or whatever, right?
Right. And we know that. So, I try to tell people, listen, what I am asking from you in advertising is a mere pittance of what you spend on your operating budget anyway. So it's important to stay present. It's important to promote more now than ever. And I've got advertisers doing that very same thing, which is so great. I mean, I love that they're getting more involved now because they kind of have to. And I love it when advertisers do that. I want them to present their products in a meaningful, real way where people can go, this is not bullshit. This is a nice product. And I do represent really nice products and really nice people on the website. But it's a challenge, having said that, it's a struggle for content a little bit.
Well, so on that note with content, I mean, has this kind of made you reevaluate your future with the website and what you're going to maybe do or anything?
Nah, I'm going down with the fucking ship. I mean, I'm going to ride this bitch till I can't ride it no mo. I mean,
and do you think you'll, and I'm bringing this up because we've been talking actually about this part, but as far as content goes, are you kind of thinking about maybe doing some new stuff and, doing something a little different?
You're setting me up, aren't you?
I'm setting you up.
That was a beautiful softball pitch.
Yeah, right, you like that?
Yeah, and I have to hit it. We're going to be adding more video content. In fact, I'm going to be doing a lot more interviews. And in fact, speaking of Mark Reynolds, who I mentioned long ago, who's just a dear friend and a wonderful human being, I'm going to reach out to Mark as my first interview because Mark is a 3-time Olympic medalist, 2 golds, 1 silver, should have been 3 golds, world champion, and just a wonderful human being. And I was fortunate enough to work with Mark out of his lot for 10 years. It's just a great experience for me. So yes, we're going to start adding video content. But one of the things that we have advantage over some of the, shall we say the cut and paste sites, you know who you are, you press release running people, you people who run race results like it's somehow fucking important. I'm sure everybody wants to know how they did in a race, but that's all you got. Other than your smarmy bullshit know-it-all editorials, you got nothing. Meanwhile, I have never done race results. I mean, really, we have a sailing news site where you could get race results from the major regattas around the world, but fuck, I'm not interested in running race reports. I mean, go to the other douchebags for that. I'm interested in original content that's interesting, that's different, that reflects me. And this isn't a conscious decision. These are the things that I put up on my website are things that I like.
Right.
I never, ever look at the competition. Never. I don't give a fuck what they're doing. I know a lot of them copy me. They've copied me over the years. They rip off ideas of mine all the time. I don't care. Go ahead. You're going to do it, but you're not going to do it nearly as well as I do. And I'm going to do interviews, and my interviews are going to be so much better than any of yours. You won't even fucking try because I'm good at this shit. And so I'm going to do one with Mark. So we've made a point of making our content exactly as it's always been. And so, yeah, of course, we're lacking regatta photos and regatta videos. Those are not a thing anymore. But they haven't really impacted the kind of content that we run. I mean, some of these other douchebags are going to be scrambling. But again, I don't care. So I will say this, if this looks like it's going to be problematic in terms of me staying in business, and as of now, that's not even close to being true, I'll have to think about doing something else. But, right now, since this is my life's work, I'm going to continue to pour my life's effort into it. And I know this is a time to step up. It's the time to go, oh, boy.
Yeah, right.
Now's the time to keep going. Advertisers, keep coming. Keep presenting your stuff. I'm going to keep getting content, and I work just as hard, if not harder now than I did, because this is, I mean, listen, you got to get going now. If you don't get going now, you're just going to fall by the wayside, and that ain't going to happen. So
Totally. Well, and what you just said is a lot of the reason why I like working with you, and I've identified a lot with Sailing Anarchy. And that's, the thing is, I came into this wanting to do video. I'm still perfecting the art of it, but what I saw was a lot of sailing porn, right? Sailing fluff or whatever you want to call it. And it was just people who were taking video and putting it to like AC/DC song and throwing it up on YouTube. And, there's no story there. So, I see there's massive potential. There's so many interesting stories. And because every time I take on one of these insane projects, I always call you ahead of time. You say, don't do it. And then I do it anyway.
And then you do it. But it turns out to be a shit show.
It turns out to be a total shit show. But, great story, great experience, I guess. Somehow I really got to get the camera more. I need a 360 camera at all times, I think, just rolling through this shit. But anyway, the point is that I think I like the idea that it doesn't have to be about race results. It's not like there's so much more above the waterline than that. You know what I mean?
It's the stories,
even
Justin,
totally,
it's the stories.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. The ocean race or Volvo Ocean Race, they keep saying they want to make a show like Deadliest Catch. And every year, every time they do it, it's like, guys, you have the most amazing human story on the freaking planet. Right. And you have such a beautiful opportunity to tell something that most people couldn't imagine doing. And, and they're almost there. I hope that maybe the next ocean race they get there. But, I think it's interesting that they don't encapsulate that, and it's hard. And I'll tell you another thing that's been a difficult thing for me personally in this is that if you do go out and tell the real story, you're not going to get invited on the next boat, So that's tough, right? I want to,
it's tough.
People are interested in that. They want to know about it, but you can't do it because you're kind of dancing on this line of I don't want to not get invited out again,
So one of the original sort of bedrock things of Sailing Anarchy was, we're not doing the bullshit that other people have already done, because I already see what it is. Nobody says a bad word about anything. Isn't everything so great? Oh my God, we should have just adulation for these great sailors. And I'm like, fuck that. I mean, no, there's a story behind there that you're not telling. There's something going on that you're not sharing. And so along the way, I mean, I have so many enemies in this sport. I mean, people just loathe me. I was talking to a friend, and we were talking about Seahorse Magazine, which is the best by far. And he goes, hey, what do you think of those guys? And I'm like, oh my God, I love Seahorse. Those guys are they've been pure. I love them. They've been the same magazine, the same thing for 30 years. I love those guys. And, but they're my only friends in the sailing media world.
Right.
Only friends. Now, Granted, I've attacked a number of them. There's one guy here locally whose ass is chapped raw from the poundings I've given him, and they'll never stop because he deserves them. But so I've created wars, but people just by nature, oh, who is that guy? What is he doing? How is he saying that? And listen, I got my ass sued. I lost a lot of fucking money in that lawsuit. And so now I walk the line a little more carefully. With that in mind, it's a litigious society more than ever. And I just don't want to put myself out there where somebody can, take a hack at me because I, offended their delicate sensibilities, or called them a name. And there's a lot of thin-skinned pussies in this sport, but there's also some really righteous men and women, who are here for the right reason. They do the right thing, and they are the drivers in the sport. And I've always supported them, but I've never been shy of calling a douche a douche. And y'all, by the way, all you douches that are watching this, y'all know who I'm talking about. You motherfucker. But I'm not an angry guy, and I'll just wrap this up. I mean, I get angry. I'm a passionate guy, right? I love hard. I hate hard. And There's no middle ground with me, generally speaking. There's not much gray. My world is black and white. And I think Sailing Anarchy is presented that way. I would say we've mellowed out. We've probably softened the edges a little bit over the years. Trust me, Justin, before I let you go. You can't believe the amount of people who said I sold out. At first, everybody sent me emails going, this will never work. People hate you. People in the industry hate you. Your site will never work. Well, 21 years later, who's the one standing and who are the ones who aren't? But, I've softened the edges for sure. But I think I've kept enough of an edge where we remain the go-to site. Our numbers prove that every single day. And I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I couldn't have done it along the way without a whole bunch of people, yourself included. I do know that, and I'm thankful and grateful for that.
So Lonnie Jarvis says B-Dock in the Channel Islands Harbor. Oxnard produced some great sailors. And then Gary Swenson, Dave Klatt, Bob Boys, and yes, Scot Tempesta. Early 70s in Oxford produced all the same little corps. So that's cool. It's a cool little shout out there. That's
really cool. I appreciate that shout out, Lonnie. And you were one of them, your dad, brass ring, the Erickson 29 tall rig, if I remember right. I remember all y'all, and you probably all remember me. And yeah, it was an amazing time to grow up there. It was a group of sailors, like Lonnie said, that were just incredible. I mean, the timing, look, much of life, as you know, Justin, is just fucking timing, right?
Right.
Like Sailing Anarchy was timing also. Like I wasn't first to market, but I was best to market early. And I think we've retained that. And I have no plans on quitting. I'll quit when I die. How's that sound?
I like that. Well, I have two more questions for you. And I also want to open this up to some other people. So guys, go ahead and ask any questions that you might have on the YouTube channel, because that's where I am right now. So the first question is, and I'm sort of self-promoting here. How do we get more people interested in sailing? That's one. It's that's tough, right? That's a tough question.
God damn. Let me just jump to that. This argument, that question has been tackled by everybody, in the sport, in the industry, media, people that sell boats, build boats, whatever. How do we get more people? The barriers to entry are virtually insurmountable. Good luck getting a San Diego Yacht Club. They'll shoot you if you walk in and you're not a member, And so just because you got to go to San Diego Yacht Club, no, there's all these boats and they cost money and it's fucking expensive to own a boat. Especially a racing boat, right? Of almost any size, the costs are relatively expensive, no matter the size. How you learn to be a good sailor, that's a whole nother thing. There's been a dearth of coaching in this sport. And, now thankfully there's places like J World that's run by my good friend Wayne Zattel. And there's harbor sailboats, and there's a couple other places where you can go and learn the basics, and then you can rent their boats. They have charter boats, but most of them are not racing oriented. So, and I'm not saying this all has to be racing oriented, but performance oriented is kind of what I'm interested in. Performance cruising, performance day sailing, and of course performance racing. And so I'd say that's the most insurmountable thing. There aren't that many public launch ramps. Where do you store your boat, by the way? If it is a boat that you launch, right? In your backyard, maybe your driveway, maybe. There aren't many yards to store them at. So there's all these things. The infrastructure, unfortunately, the sport grew without it thinking about its own infrastructure. And had people, and I know there are people that have been visionaries and have attempted to do this, but the sport as a whole, had it known that, wow, we have a limited audience here, how are we going to make it bigger? There should have been public funding for sailing centers in virtually every single marina and harbor around the country, right? There's no excuse for it. And I know there's these sort of exclusive Olympic venues that have opened up to other sailors to a degree, but man, for everybody, the general public, this is how you get into it. We're going to show you how to sail. You want to learn how to performance sail? We're going to show that too. I know the Mission Bay Aquatic Center does that. I don't know them. They're excellent. They always have been. But, I really think it comes back to, without going on and on, which I have a proclivity to do, I think it's really the barrier to entry.
Yeah. And how do you think here's the big bomb. How do you think COVID-19 is going to affect the sailing industry? I mean, again, like, dude, I've spent the last few years really trying to get into the sailing community to film and stuff like that. But really, I'd say in the last like 6 months to a year, I really have been pushing forward, right, into doing this whole sailing thing. And, I came out with the Gamble film, and, I just did this Atlantic crossing, and things were just starting to catch on, where I was actually getting emails and calls for money, paying jobs, right, to do races, to start filming. It was just starting to happen. And now the ports are closing, and everything. It's just like all the races and everything. I mean, I was supposed to do Tahiti race. That's not going to happen now, I mean, so what do you think as far as
well? And
yeah.
You're right. So here's what I think is the biggest problem for the sailing industry going forward. So I like to tell people, I'm in the disposable income business. People use their disposable income to buy boats, to buy sails, to pay for lunches, to pay for beers, haul outs, bottom jobs, new lines, new sheets, go down the list, right? And it's all with money that they have to spend. Well, if suddenly you don't have that money to spend, maybe you're not going to order those 2 new sails this year. In fact, I guarantee you're probably not going to, unless you've got money and it doesn't really matter. You're not really going to be affected. But there's a lot of people sitting at home right now who wish they were in the office and they can't be, right? So they're watching, and the economy, of course, is tanking, in no small part thanks to the imbecile in the White House. That traitor that I'm talking about.
I forgot to mention in my intro how much of a Trump supporter you are.
That Russian whore who is doing his best to destroy this country, and he's doing a great job.
Let's keep it to sail.
Trump tards, like, really good job supporting him. Y'all should be so proud, you fucks.
All right, let's go back to sailing.
So this is the biggest problem is, sure, if people can't go racing, that's a fucker, right? And if people can't even go sailing, that's a double fucker. But if the industry isn't going to have people that have money to buy things, yikes. So that's the thing that I'm probably the most concerned. I'm concerned about it. People, listen, companies don't have to advertise. I mean, hey, listen, we're out of money. We don't have to advertise, right? I've already heard that from a few guys. If this situation continues to get worse and the economy continues to tank, that's going to really impact, what I do, and along with sailmakers and riggers and everybody else, right? I'm concerned for everybody because we're all in this sport.
We're all in this, right?
We're all in this, right? Yeah. And people wished I wasn't. People wish Sailing Anarchy wasn't a part of it, and but we are. And we're like porn, right? So hardly anybody admits to watching and looking at us, but they are. The numbers tell me that 11 million page views, and so it's like porn. Like, nobody talks about porn. Well, I do. Well, yeah. In fact, I mentioned I'm a budding porn star in the old young category. Old young. I'm sorry, but yeah. This is. I mean, so people they used to not talk like, do you read Sailing Anarchy? Like, no. Now it's of course they do. Everybody does. But yeah, I'm worried about that. I think that's the biggest impact. I mean, if people can't use their boats, of course. If they can't race their boats, of course. But if they don't have money to buy shit, wow, we're in trouble. New boat sales, everything. Used boat, everything. I've had A4 on the market just since about this started. I've had 2 bites. And I have it priced dirt cheap. It's turnkey. It's a rocket ship. Step on board, win races. So this is impacting a lot of people, myself included.
I can tell you, I'm saving my money for those good used boat prices, actually, because this will be the time to buy, right?
I know a guy who has a Flying Tiger but that's how I see that. I see that.
I do love that boat. It's a great boat, man. I messaged you from the Atlantic because my dad was the one who was like, Scott's selling his boat, and I'm like, no, and now, hey, I'd love that boat. That'd be fun.
I do love it too. And if it won't sell, well, fuck it. Then once the racing starts going again, we'll race it. We'll put some new sails on it. We'll go fucking racing. Yeah.
I mean, I guess anybody who is watching this or watches this eventually, I will say, like, when this is over, like, I hope that people decide they want to go outside. And if you've never been sailing before, you should go sailing after this. And just like, it is an incredible experience, Go ask one of your friends who races, to go out with them. And, at first you probably will have no idea what's going on, but when you start to get what's going on, it's actually really exciting. It's like a mixture of, like chess and sprinting, like I was saying earlier, where you kind of, it's all about maneuvering yourself in the right spot. And it's exciting, it really is. And it's relaxing, all ironically, all at the same time.
Ironically, it can be, right? I mean, my girlfriend Ford, right? I mean, she'd never sailed in her life. And I took her first adventure was a Wednesday night race, right?
Right. Yeah.
100 boats out there. It's fucking a madhouse, right? She loved it. She had no idea what was going on. She loved it. Like, wow, I can't believe this. And so now, and she races with us all the time now. She day sails with me a lot. I've been teaching her how to sail. She knows how to steer. She knows what coming up and coming down is. I mean, she knows how to tack. Not too good on the jiving, but I'm going to put her, in fact, in Wings to Tails J World as soon as that's available, right? Right now you can't. And she's going to learn more, and she's into it, and I love it. It's fabulous.
That's awesome.
Yeah, maybe people will, but again, I just think that goddamn barrier to entry is so difficult.
It's rough. It's rough. And you got to have access to water, and, half the country's freaking cold most of the time, Yeah. So, there's that. Well, anyway, Scott, dude, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, man. And anybody who is watching this or watches this, go to Scott's website, sailinganarchy.com. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. Definitely worth.
I'll post this video, right?
Perfect. Yeah. So a lot of neat stuff, interesting stories from all around the world, this and that. So definitely check that out. And if you want to reach out to Scott, there's a good place to do it. And, yeah, man, again, thanks for taking me on your boat. Thanks for believing in me all these years. And thanks for taking the time to do this little interview.
Dude, it's all my pleasure, really and truly. Thanks, brother.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you later, buddy. I think we have a virtual cocktail party tomorrow.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, another one.
I've already started. Jesus, I'll be in good shape by tomorrow night.
That's right.
All right, dude. Thanks very much.
Take care, dude.
Bye, buddy.
Bye.